everybody. Welcome to Breaking the Rules. My name's Casey Dempster. I'm here with Ray Lowe
Good
and our
morning.
guest, Dennis Drake,
Good
who
morning.
you'll meet in a couple of minutes. I wanted to start out by mentioning that Breaking the Rules is a show about change and transition. There are a lot of people that have a very difficult time with change. They resist it, they're uncomfortable with it. And we believe that if you feel that you're in control of the change, that sometimes that whole transition period can go a lot more smoothly for you. Just because things have always been done a certain way doesn't mean you have to continue doing them that way, and that's what we mean by breaking the rules. So today I have a quote for you, and this is from Therese Fowler, and she says, "Some rules are nothing but old habits that people are afraid to change." And I think that's really true. I mean, as I said, just because things have always been done a certain way doesn't mean you have to continue doing them that way. And oftentimes you're doing it because everybody else did it, and there's not even necessarily a basis in truth of why you should do things that way. So to make your life easier, to make change more easy to handle, consider breaking the rules. Right?
I like to break rules.
I know you do.
But I also think when you break the rules, you ought to have a plan going forward so that you know why you broke the rules.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Right. Absolutely.
And we've got an expert here today. So we have a guy who uses the acronym SMART. And Dennis, tell us what being SMART is.
SMART is just is an acronym that I used as a systematically maneuvering away from retirement taxes. A lot of planners don't talk about the tax part of retirement planning, and I kind of specialize in that arena.
Cool. Tell us a little bit about you, your personal life. I don't want to know all the details, but you're married, right?
I'm married.
You've
I have a
been
daughter
doing
who's
this-
25.
Okay.
And she's on her own. She was at the Firefly Festival this weekend,
Ooh.
having a good time. So a little bit of a hippie chick. I don't know where she got that from. But so I've been in business a little over 30 years, and I'll have my 30th year anniversary in November.
What drew you
this
to
year.
financial advising?
Yeah. Long story short, I used to own a map company, and that company got bought out by Rand McNally, and I was happily unemployed at the time. We made a nice little profit there, and I was just looking for something to do. When I got into this, I met somebody. He recruited me into the business, and about 30 days later, I've been on my own ever since.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I really enjoy helping people and getting them on the right track, and really educate.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a teacher first.
Yeah.
Well, maps are kind of symbolic of that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I always love maps because they kind of tell you where you are. Yeah. Sometimes you can figure out where you're going by them and stuff like that, and that's what you do for people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
I call myself the GPS now. So, and the written financial plan is your map, right?
Okay.
So if the GPS breaks, which sometimes GPSs make you go crazy, right?
Yep.
The map will always get you there. So.
Good.
Yeah.
And you're based in Delaware, but you service Greater Philadelphia.
I do.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I stole a couple things. Let me put you on the spot here. Okay. Because I really like this stuff. So, one of the first questions that you ask people when you meet them is, what do you visualize yourself doing on your journey through the golden years?
Yeah.
Now, talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think many people wing it. We don't know what we're going to do. We'd like to travel, but we're not really sure. So we'd really like to have a map of where do we really want to be? What's your purpose when you get up? Because I find that people without the purpose in the morning, it's not a comfortable and an exciting retirement, right?
Right.
So you got to wake up with some type of a purpose, whether that's doing charitable work or traveling or hanging out with the grandkids or playing golf or whatever that happens to be. But at least have some type of a plan. That way we can plan for it financially as well, right? So it's not just winging it. If you're trying to hit a dartboard and you spin somebody around in a circle and blindfold them, if we don't know where the target is, we can't hit the target, right? So we are trying to focus on creating that target.
Right.
Both financially and emotionally. And
Somebody told me the way to do that, by the way, is take the shot first and then
then
call
move the
whatever
target.
you hit the target. and unfortunately,
That could work.
That's what a lot of people. No, it doesn't work actually. Okay.
fire, shoot, aim.
And one of the things that I found with people who don't have a plan is that somebody who does have a plan
Well, that's the
creates
government.
your plan for it. Well, yeah,
that's the government
among
plan. If
everybody
you don't have your
else.
own plan, you're going to have the government plan.
Right.
So if you don't have a plan, then what you tend to do is meander. You tend to have other people tell you what their plan is going to be, and that's what you wind up doing. You know, I even notice that when my wife and I sit down and try and decide where we're going to dinner some night.
Yeah.
You know, the one who has the strongest feeling always wins, which is never me, by the way. Which is never me. Okay, so you're on this journey and you have this direction. And then the second item that you have in here that you talk about to new clients is how are you going to position your life savings to provide funding for your vision? So that's where the financial planning piece
Correct,
starts to
correct.
come in. But you start by asking questions. So what kind of answers do you get? What do people want to do? And then how much do you influence them in the process because they don't know what they want to do?
Well, most of my clients have had advisors their whole life. They've had a 401k, they've had other advisors around them, a CPA, an attorney, that have helped them get to where they are. But there really is some specialized training when it comes to the second half of the game, so to speak. You know, you hear about the retirement red zone. And it's important to learn how to distribute that money effectively, deal with taxes. So there's a lot of different planning going on. So sometimes I need to separate them because a lot of times they'll just do status quo. Their guys say, oh, you're fine, you'll be fine. You know, if you've heard about the 4% rule, we could take 4% of the money out safely without it being lost. But what if it could show you how to take out more and have more and have it guaranteed? Wouldn't that be better than hoping that 4% works, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of additional planning that can give people more money tax-free, things like that. So there's a lot of unknowns.
You mentioned the retirement red zone. When you're talking about, what is the retirement red zone? Is it beforehand?
It's the 5 to 10 years prior to and the 5 to 10 years right after.
Oh, okay.
So if there's a huge market discrepancy or loss or correction, we'd like to call it, during that time period, and you're pulling money out at the same time, it's called sequence of returns risk, and it could really cause you to have to change your retirement.
Okay.
You know, I look at it like if you want to always go on a trip out into the desert and look at the cactus and things like that, and you got a nice Cadillac and it's full of gas and you're driving along, and then you see the needle going down and going down and going down, and then you see a sign, next gas station 100 miles. Yeah. It's that time that's the most uncomfortable, because now you start rolling down the windows, you start arguing with your family, what do we do? Do we go fast? Do we go slow? What are we going to do? You know you're going to run out, you just don't know when. And it's the same thing with money, right? So that's a very uncomfortable position to be in. And the better position to be in is just have that tank full all the time, right?
Right.
So that's where we try to plan and keep that tank full, if that makes sense.
You know, how many people that start with you really don't have a good vision of what they want?
Most,
Most.
believe it or not.
Even if they've had other advisors.
Absolutely.
They find their vision is not current, or their vision is flawed in some way, or what?
Yeah. A lot of times people don't think about the next generation and doing that type of planning. We also always have concerns about long-term care expenses sometime maybe popping in there. And if anybody who's experienced that with a family member realizes that could be devastating. So a lot of things aren't talked about, and that's where my process will kind of bring up those subjects to start thinking about them, you know, and then our second appointment really say, you know, now that you've kind of been educated as to what's important to you?
Not running out of money.
Yeah.
And not
That's the
being sick.
biggest problem,
Yeah.
right? That's the biggest problem everybody's worried about, is running out of money.
Yeah.
And longevity, because we're all living longer, is what they call a risk multiplier. So all the things that we talk about, the risks in retirement, are more likely to happen the longer you live.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're all living longer.
Yes.
So, you know, making that plan is so important, because when you're not retired, what day do you spend the most money? Typically on Saturdays, right? You're going to do chores around the house, do this or that. And, you know, when you're retired, every day's a Saturday.
Okay, so how do we fix that? Well, we know we'll go through a plan, and we'll hold that up a little bit because we're going to talk about elements later.
Right.
But one of the other things that you had on your website that I was intrigued with is you talk about the retirement landscape changing. So we all know we're living longer,
Yes.
but what else is going on out there that affects us?
Well, some people, and a lot of my clients are in Wilmington and New Jersey and Philadelphia. And a lot of them work for DuPont or Hercules or, some of the Boeing, things like that. And they have a pension built in. Well, today, there's not a lot of people that have pensions, right?
Right.
What we find is most of the money that they have is tied up in their 401k or 403b or one of those qualified accounts. Well, what they don't realize is that, that $1 million balance is not all their money. Uncle Sam is part of that plan, and he's not even your real uncle.
Okay, Uncle Donald isn't going to fit there today, right? Okay.
So it's just that part of planning. It's so important to realize, really where you are today and where you want to go, and how do we get there.
Right.
Well, how do you get a grasp on that? I mean, I know now I'm well into that section right now.
Right.
I'm 77 years old,
Right.
but I hang around occasionally with people that are in their hundreds. They swim competitively. They're active. Who knows how long they're going to continue to live. So how do you do any kind of planning over that, because you don't know what the time frame works?
Right. Well, we really got a plan to live to 100. Right.
Yeah.
The statistics show that 1 in 4 of us are going to live to 100. If you're married, you're very likely that one of you are going to live to 95. So when we plan, we just got to plan like you're going to live to 100 or maybe beyond.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Look, if you retire at 65 and you die at 70, did you really have to plan? Not really,
Yeah,
right?
that
But
was
you're
up
going to
there.
survive that, right?
Right.
So really all the planning is because of longevity, and we got to really plan for that issue. So we do Social Security planning for couples as well to make sure that we maximize Social Security. And when you see the numbers on that, you'd be amazed.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are going to get $1 million, $1.5 million as a couple over their retirement years.
Yeah.
Which brings up another subject: is where's that money coming from, and
will it be
what taxes
there?
are going to do and things like that. Right? Are taxes going to go up? And yeah.
Yeah.
What about extending working into what used to be the beginning of retirement? Do you find that more and more?
I do, and that's okay if you do it because you want something to do and have the purpose. It's not okay if you have to do it because
Yes.
you haven't planned, right? And unfortunately, that's a lot where we are,
Right.
right? Because people haven't planned, they haven't saved. Sometimes you talk to people and they go, "Oh, I'm only going to live to 70 anyway. Who cares?" Right? I just read an article this morning that was talking about, they did a study and asked people, how long do you think you're going to live? And then 10 years later, 20 years later, they went to those same people and they were
Yeah.
still alive,
Yeah.
right? And they thought they were going to die 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, we all think we might have our demise sooner than later, but what happens if we don't?
Right.
Break
Let's
time.
cut here for a commercial, and then
Okay.
when we come back, we're going to talk some more, and we're going to talk about 10 elements of a successful retirement.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
Don't go away.
During your interview, will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write. The ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Say we've got grit, and we'll take it as a compliment. Because it's our uncommon drive, our spark within, that brings us together and sets us apart. We are temple made. And when others take shortcuts, when others take breaks, when others take the easy way, we take charge.
Add us on social media to watch bloopers, behind the scenes footage, previews, and more.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Breaking the Rules. I'm Casey Dempster. I'm here with Ray Lowe and our guest, Dennis Drake, who's been talking to us about a SMART retirement plan. And do you want to tell us again what SMART stands for?
Systematically maneuvering away from retirement taxes.
Perfect, perfect.
Which means more money for us.
Yes,
right?
And less
yes,
for
and less
Uncle
for
Sam.
Uncle Sam.
Yes, okay.
Because remember, he's not your uncle.
Okay, we want to talk about 10 elements of retirement success. And, you know, one of the things I've noticed so far, and I think we're going to see more of it, is this stuff is so complex that you really need a guide to take you through.
You do. And or at least have a conversation with somebody that knows what they're talking about, to just have a review of where you are and where you're going, right? So, you know, we don't charge any fee, so it's just come in, have a conversation, and you'll learn something. I guarantee you, you'll learn something. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. And I noticed back when we had the financial planning firm, oftentimes we would say to people, well, you know, they were approaching the red zone.
Right.
And we'd say, well, what do you think you want to do? And they would say, oh, well, I want to travel. I want to spend more time with my kids. I want to play more golf. But they were never specific.
Right.
And that's kind of where plans fall apart or don't even come together, because there comes a time when you have to be specific.
Right, yeah, exactly. And that's really one of the first steps of the plan is to have a written plan. Like really sit down and say, this is where I want to go. This is how, you know, and then we can have a plan on how to get there.
Right.
So that's the hardest thing. I ask people to do a budget. It is just, people haven't been used to doing budgets, and I say, you know, how much are you going to need? I don't know. Well, I can't plan for, I don't know.
Right.
You know,
Well,
give me some numbers, right?
Part of it is making a commitment. You feel every time you write something down, I've made a commitment,
Exactly.
and I got to do this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you don't, but without
Correct.
that plan, you don't know how to change the other pieces.
Right.
So you start out and you do a written plan for people.
We
when
do
you
a
bring
written
them in your
plan,
office.
right. So
Right.
having that plan, I call it the roadmap. When we get back to the map situation, I'm kind of the GPS. I'm here for you for guidance, but you have a map. So if something happens to me, you still have the map. Right. So you really know how to get there.
Right.
So, and that's why we'd like to have that written plan. You know,
So the second thing is to have a budget.
create the budget. Yeah. So, and that's the most difficult sometimes. Because here's what I like to do. If we have a budget, we need $5,000 a month, say, in retirement. I call that your paycheck, but then we want to have a play check as well, right? So
I like that,
yeah,
play check.
Yeah. So, you know, we don't want to survive. We want to thrive in retirement, right? So we want to be able to do things. We don't want to have to look at the gas gauge and say, oh, geez, I can't go out to dinner tonight because I don't know if we can make it and make our ends meet, right? So if we have that guaranteed money coming in every month, I call it mailbox money. It's coming in every month, Social Security, pension, you know, 401k distributions, all those coming in every month, and we know exactly what we're going to get, and we plan for inflation, we should be good.
Right. So that was number 3, guaranteed income.
Guaranteed income. So
Yeah.
a lot of times when we look at some of the options that we have available to create guaranteed income, will also give us more income than the status quo. So we talk about breaking the rules and going with status quo. Well, this is not following the herd strategy. This is really saying, I'm going to have guarantees, and I know exactly what I'm going to have every month, right? Studies show that when that happens and you have that set up, you'll actually live longer because there's less stress in your life, right? And you're able to go do things that you want to do and have fun, right? So that's, you know, if that is the only purpose is that you want to live a little longer, it's a good plan, right?
Well, I like the comfort of a fixed income. I mean, I'm one of those lucky people that have somewhat of a pension because my wife worked for a government agency
Right,
for a
yeah.
long time. And I'll tell you, it's really a lot more comfortable than people who don't have it, isn't it?
That's correct.
Okay. And the only problem with a pension is, what works today is not necessarily going to work tomorrow.
Correct.
Because we have this thing called
Inflation, right?
Inflation.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
which
Which is
number
actually the next
4.
thing on our subject.
What
yeah,
a great
yeah.
segue.
Yeah.
Congrats, Ray.
You're welcome.
So talk about inflation protection, because I think a lot of people don't understand inflation risk, that's one of the big risks.
Right. Well, if we have inflation of 3%, every 20 years you're going to need twice as much money to buy the same amount that you are buying today. We think government is, with their Social Security adjustments, are probably not giving us the full picture, right? And just because of budget issues. And so when we do a plan, we plan that Social Security might increase by 1%,
Okay.
but real inflation is going to be at 3.5, something like that. So we plan for that. It's not an issue if you plan for it.
Right.
It could become a big issue if you don't plan for
Right.
it. Right.
Right.
And most pensions don't have inflation.
No,
risk.
typically they're fixed.
So you get what you think is good, but all of a sudden,
It's
the first
not
10
so
years
good.
is probably pretty good. You're comfortable.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then the 10th year comes along and you look at all this accumulative garbage that's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, don't get me wrong. Pensions are a great base.
They are.
Yes.
But they're not going to keep pace with inflation.
Correct.
And that's where the rest of the assets can come in, and we can manage those so we have protection for inflation.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got this concept now. We've got our plan, we've got our budget, we've got our
Mailbox
guaranteed
money.
income stream to protect us, and then things happen.
Yeah, well, long-term care, we always have to have a plan for it, right? 3 out of 4 of us will need long-term care in our lifetimes. That's a big number.
It is.
right?
And saying, oh, my kids will take care of me is a pitfall, I think.
It is a pitfall. And in some societies, that's common, but if that's the plan, at least we had a plan, right?
Yeah.
So have a plan, because that could devastate an estate so quickly. Average long-term care costs $5-6 grand a month.
10?
Yeah, my mom was in a nursing home for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
She happened to be, I grew up pretty poor, and we didn't have assets, and so she was a ward of the state. So was my father, and they both died in those facilities that were places that you really don't want to go.
Right.
So if we have a plan, and we can pick where we get to go,
Right.
maybe we'll go to a really nice place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And enjoy it there. It's like a cruise ship, right?
Right, right.
Instead of going somewhere where you're getting cheese sandwiches for lunch.
And that's a really good present to leave your kids, if you think about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they don't have to make these decisions. You've already picked it out. And there's so many great things to choose from today. I mean, you've got the insurance policy, but you also have the continuing care facilities. Some of them look like wonderful hotels. To
Yeah,
live
oh
in,
yeah, absolutely.
right?
Oh, we could also plan to have care at home.
Right.
There's so many home health care agencies now. You don't have to go to a facility unless you're forced there because of dementia or something like that. But, why not be in the comfort of your home as well? So we can plan for that as well. It doesn't have to be in a facility.
So what's the plan as part of it here? And then I think probably communicating that plan to your kids is probably really important too.
It's important. Yeah. Happens, and that's rare, believe it or not. Even in estate planning, a lot of times the kids aren't involved.
Yeah.
And then when that person dies, there could be battles. And I got pictures on my wall, all these celebrities and all the mistakes they made in their estate plan.
Yeah.
They had good attorneys, you would think. They had good accountants, but they didn't plan it correctly, right? So,
Item number 6 of these 10 elements is Social Security maximization. We're going to kind of
go quick.
shorten up
All right.
on these.
Yes. Well, so Social Security, it's a lot of money coming in
Yeah.
over your lifetime. And I always ask people, do you want to pay taxes on it or don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, then we can plan. If you do, stay what you're doing, right?
Okay. And
So-
then 7?
Well, we talked about longevity a little bit earlier. So longevity is a risk multiplier. The longer we live, the more likely some of these negative things could happen to us. Market risk, things like that could happen. Long-term care could happen. So all the things that we got to worry about, inflation, it's all maximized or multiplied by longevity.
Right.
And the centenarian generation is the fastest growing generation in the United States.
It is, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So we're all
10,000
gonna
baby boomers a day get on Social
We're all
Security.
going to get old, and we have to decide whether we're going to sit in a rocking chair in the nursing home or whether we're going to be out doing things because
Absolutely.
we have the money and the health.
That's right, that's right.
Okay.
All right. So minimizing market risk is the next thing on the subject. So, we don't want to have a huge market correction in the middle of us taking money out of our account. Because we're taking money out, we have a correction, it's a bottom that is going to be hard to recover from. And then we have to adjust the plan. Why? Let's just get it guaranteed so we don't have to adjust the plan, right? And taxes are another big thing. So let's get right into that, because Social Security is being paid out, and the studies show that by 2025, 97 cents of every dollar that's taxed coming in is going to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. No other programs. So do you think taxes are going to go up, or do you think they're going to stay the same, or do you think they're going to go down? When I do seminars, every hand in the room says taxes are going up. So if taxes are going up now, why wouldn't we pay taxes today at some of the lower rates? And that's really the strategies that we use, is let's get rid of the taxes.
Okay.
That way we get you into a zero tax bracket. Wouldn't it be great to be in a zero tax bracket in retirement and never have to worry about paying taxes?
Right.
All right,
And
well-
last but not least, I'm sorry, Ray, but we want to get these 10 up
Okay.
there.
All right, last one. And if you have grandkids, kids, preparing a legacy plan, just how is the money going to transfer to your heirs at your demise, right? And can we do it tax efficiently? Again, we don't want to give the IRS more money than they deserve, right? They always say, you know, I don't mind paying taxes, I just want to pay less if I can, right?
That sounds like a good plan to me.
Well, I mind paying the taxes too. But
But at this point,
time's up?
yeah, time's up.
Okay.
We're ready to wrap it up.
So-
But
Okay.
I'm glad we got these 10 things
Good,
in, because
yeah,
they're
I'm glad,
really
yes.
helpful and really important.
And if you want a copy of that, where do you get it?
Yeah.
Yes, all right. My website is smarttaxfreeretirement.com, and there is a box there at the bottom of the page that you can just check, and we'll get one of these out to you, and no cost. We'll get it to you in the mail. And if you have any questions, you can reach me at 302-633-4100. My office is in Wilmington, Delaware on Philadelphia Pike, and I really look forward to helping you and guiding you through the process.
Great. Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank
It
you,
was
guys.
great talking with you.
You too.
Thank you, too. And don't forget to break some rules.
You got to get that in there, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a good